And welcome to episode 19 of the 77-day video challenge. My name is Chick, and I'd like to welcome you here tonight. Now, over the last couple of days, I gave you a couple of examples of um, people on my resentment list and working through that resentment list, and the realization that I was at fault, at least partially at fault, in almost all of those resentments. Now, let me just tell you, there were many more than two, but I'm not going to sit here and give you a litany and go down the list of everybody and everything I had a resentment against and how I got over it. But I'm going to go on and tell you that as I continue to examine my life and working with my sponsor, we also went through my unrealistic fears list. And trust me when I say that most of my fears were totally unrealistic. The chances of them coming true were minuscule, and the consequences, if they did come true, were also minute and not much of a chance of them happening. So I was able to discard those unrealistic fears. We looked at the things that I had done to people who I had no resentment against, but they should have had a resentment against me. But in the long run, as I sat with my sponsor and we went on to where I sat down and I was going to tell him all my problems, he explained to me that, again, that this was a moral inventory. And he told me a little story about if you were going to go into a screw factory, and I told you I wanted to do a screw inventory in the screw factory, and I wanted you to count all the 1/4 inch, 2.5 inch hex head bolts. So now, as you go into that factory, is that all you're going to find is those bolts? No, you're going to find screws, and you're going to find washers, and you're going to find different size bolts, carriage bolts, everything in the world in there. And you have to go through those things to find the 2.5 inch, 1/4 inch hex head bolts. He said, that's the same thing we're doing here. We're going to go in and we're going to do this inventory, and we're going to look not at the things you did wrong, but we're going to look at the exact nature of those wrongs. We're going to look for why you thought that way, why you felt that way. And the only reason we're doing that is not for morbid reflection or to look at what a horrible person you are, but we're going in to find out what the exact nature of those wrongs are so that we can then go ahead and ask God to help you remove them. Humbly ask Him to remove them, not demand. And so I sat there and I went through this long discussion with my sponsor. Now I'm going to share, as you may know by now, I love quotes. And there's a quote from a guy by the name of C.S. Lewis. And he says, great relationship begins when one man looks at another and says, you too? I thought I was the only one. So as I began to go through this with my sponsor, he began to share some of the exact natures of his wrong and how God had removed them and how God had freed him from those. Sometimes permanently, sometimes a little bit at a time, always in God's time. When I was able to do that, and God did start removing those defects of character. And when I say defects of character, I'm not saying that I was a horrible person. I'm just saying that I was doing things that were against my own character. It was a defect of my character, like a dent in a brand new automobile. It doesn't ruin the whole automobile. It just means you have to get the dent fixed. And if you are like me, your best bet to do that is to take it to a body shop and not try to do it yourself. So as we began to go through that, I began to feel a real freedom. And once that happened, then he told me I had to go make amends to the people that I had wronged. And this is what he said. Making an amends is not going to somebody and telling them you're sorry. They already know how sorry you are. And every time you've told somebody you're sorry in the past, what you were telling them is you're sorry you got caught. This is not the same thing. You're going in to right the wrong. If it's a monetary amends, a financial amends, you're going to do everything you can to pay those people back. If it's the amends of treating them better, that's what you're going to do. If it's whatever the amends takes, that's what you have to do. It's a living amends. It never ends. It goes on forever. And it's okay, because the person that I really needed to make the amends to more than anyone else was me. Tomorrow night, I'm going to talk to you about the beginning of that amends and how that went and how freeing it was. And I'm only telling you this because the unexamined life is not worth living. See you tomorrow night for episode 20, one day at a time.